I want to explain a little bit about my investigations of various illnesses. I'm a scientist first and a physician healer second, and that's good in a way because I ask questions about whether or not what I think I know I actually really know. And a good example of that is the amazing combination of things present in KARDIOVASC. Now, if you look at a health condition like hypertension or congestive heart failure or even vascular disease, and I was talking to one of my friends, Dr. Ron Klatz, and if you actually do an autopsy on people who have heart attacks, did you know if you do an autopsy in the arteries of half of the people who have heart attacks, their arteries are whistle clear clean? There's no plaque in their arteries when they die. Isn't that interesting? What do you think of that, FARID?
Yeah, that's surprising. Yeah.
No, the reason why I say that is because a lot of time if people will say, well, there's plaque, and they found it on this and that, and the person had a heart attack, and of course you can see that on a high-speed CT scan, but half of the people that die don't have plaque. They have spasm. And they have such severe spasm, they actually have a coronary where the hypoxia causes heart muscle damage, and they go into terminal heart failure or get a cardiac arrest, an arrhythmia. Now, why is that? And one of the things that I think often is that the anomalies, the exceptions, often teach you that whatever your theory was of the underlying problem is just wrong-headed. Give you an example. I looked at the issue when I was asked by my grandfather. I was finishing my PhD in marine molecular genetics in 1973 at age 21, and my grandfather was in the hospital. He was a bad sugaraholic, and of course he was a candy maker at 13, a master candy maker. He went into the jewelry business through his uncles, and he became an owner of multiple stores. In fact, he was so wealthy, he had a suite beside Frank Sinatra at the Copacabana before the revolution in Cuba. But he was a bad guy. For every 7 feet in his jewelry stores, he had a candy bowl. So people come in there, and they're ready to buy diamonds and jewelry because their blood sugar is off into orbit. And so is his. Now, the problem is, when I visited him in hospital, he was ready to get his toes and feet cut off and get below-the-knee amputations because he was very bad and wasn't, back then all they would have would be insulin injections. And they had the short-acting insulin, right? And he wouldn't monitor his blood sugar. In fact, I remember he went with my mother down to a trip one time in Florida or down to Cuba, and they pulled him off the plane when they brought him to hospital because he was having a fainting spell trying to get in the plane. His blood sugar was 700. They didn't know why he was conscious. They couldn't explain it. He's a tough dude. He didn't die until he was 78, so despite the fact of being diabetic, he outlasted. Now, what I did is I went back to the scene of what is diabetes, and I said, all of our assumptions, and I had met Banting and Best, that were actually working in the dog lab outside McGill University, and they were ligating arteries and looking to see how they could reproduce diabetes by cutting off the arterial supply to the pancreas. Now, cut off all of the supply to not only the beta cells, but also other cells in the pancreas that make other hormones. And the assumption was that diabetics, basically, they stop making insulin, so they turn diabetic. Now, the problem is, when you make those assumptions, I had gone back to talk to Dr. Kraft, Dr. Otto Hewen, who's the head of pathology at the University of Calgary, and he had been doing, because they had been mandated by the state by the province of Alberta, who had a lot of money, Heritage Trust Fund money. In 1980, when we started our research 36 years ago, we had $24 billion in the kitty. That's a long time ago. We got a lot more money now in Alberta. Alberta is like the Alberta, if you want to call it the Arabs of the North, and they're sitting on the oil tar sands, which is 200 times more oil than the rest of the world combined, just sitting in the tar sands. Just to give you an idea, it doesn't include Turner Valley and other areas in Alberta. They've got immense amounts of oil. And if you just go north of Alberta in the Prudhoe Bay, the Liberty Rail rig site there has the second largest batholith of oil on the planet. The largest one is at the southwest end of the Dead Sea, right under the Dead Sea. Okay? And that one has 27.2 trillion barrels of oil, a lot more than Saudi Arabia and the Middle East by many, many, many times. So what I want you to understand is, so when I met with Dr. Hewen, I said, what are you finding when you're doing your work? Because he was measuring insulin levels and a glucose tolerance test. It wasn't just measuring blood sugar. And he said, well, we're finding their blood insulin levels are high. This is people that were dying or having complications, dying of non-ketonic hyperosmolar coma. Now, why is that important? Because, I asked the question, Dr. Kraft at the University of Chicago, was a pathologist, had discovered with insulin glucose tolerance tests that diabetics were showing up in his test being high. And he said, I wonder if this is an anomaly or if it's something that's standard. So I personally drew the bloods of hundreds of my patients, along with hundreds and hundreds of that were done under mandate by a court order for the Heritage Trust Fund to pay for these tests with the pathologists. We're talking about a province that's big. I mean, the total territory of Alberta is bigger than the territory of Texas. It's a big state. I mean, it's 1,200 miles from the southern border to the Alaskan border, okay, the border to the Northwest Territories and inside the Arctic Circle. So it's a big, big province. And so when I started doing my tests, I realized, oh my gosh, so I brought my data in, and when I measured the data, by the way, I didn't just measure insulin. I measured glucagon levels, ACTH, prolactin, T3. I brought the reverse T3 test from Germany. I was the first doctor in the world. There was a time for several years where I ordered 99.9% of the T3 tests on the planet were ordered by Dr. Deagle. Okay, so I'm a prescient world-class expert, and a lot of stuff I haven't published. I'm going to publish it this year because I was hoping other doctors would rediscover some of the things I have, and they haven't, like cortisol levels we also measured. Because when somebody gets a hypoglycemic attack, it's not due to just a drop in blood sugar. They may be having a drop in blood cortisol level that disappears and you can't even measure it. Even though their blood sugar is normal, their body makes up for it by putting out massive amounts of adrenal hormones, noradrenaline and adrenaline. So their blood sugar looks fine, but their cortisol level is like in their boots. It's not even measurable. So the same thing I approach with heart disease. Now, what is heart disease? If half the people that die of a heart attack don't even have blocked arteries, what the hell are we talking about? Well, if you look at the KARDIOVASC formula, it includes things that balance your autonomic nervous system. It not only prevents plaque, because that's one pathway to get heart disease, is to develop calcified plaque that ruptures. But it's not the only pathway. And in fact, when you get a calcified plaque that develops, it's due to recurring spasm, usually at branch points of blood vessels, where there's oxidative stress because it's infected biofilm. And when you take the KARDIOVASC formula, it helps to not only knock off the biofilm and kill off the nanobacteria, but stop vasospasm, stimulate nitric oxide, prevent oxidation of cholesterol to form 9-neuronal hydroxycholesterol, and T-bars or oxidized fatty acids, which when your macrophages eat these little globules, they die and become foam cells. But there's also spasm. And most people don't realize that you cannot have an illness of any kind unless you have a local or systemic dysautonomia. Now, unless you're a subspecialist in physiology, which I've done a lot of extra training in motion disorder labs and physiology, you won't understand that the best way to look for dysautonomia is a thermogram. If you do a thermogram of somebody that's getting coronary spasm, you can actually see the parts of their chest wall and their arteries where there's a temperature change occurring. Okay? And if you do tests using a Keithley Enterprises microvoltmeter analysis using picovolts and microamps, you can actually see abnormal frequency patterns showing there's something going on with the autonomic nervous system that can normally not be detected. Now, the KARDIOVASC formula stops that. So, for example, the primary cause of congestive heart failure is not that you're just getting screwed up mitochondria, because that's a factor. CoQ10, ubiquinol, and the other things are very important. But it's dysautonomia, and that's where the valerian and some of the other components like the Vitexin come in, that actually tries to correct the autonomic imbalances that are present in the heart of somebody who's getting hypertension or getting congestive heart failure. The primary problem is the autonomic nervous system screwed up. Now, there are contributory factors that can also create plaque over time, and we did a study back in Georgia in 1987-88 where I worked with a cardiology company, and we were actually doing tests, and there were multiple doctors involved with the study, looking at Holter monitoring and looking to see, and we found that 1/3 of males over 30 that had hypertension, they had coronary vascular spasm and had no symptoms, whether they're walking around or they're sleeping in bed or they're having sex or they're just sitting there at their desk. They had no idea that their coronary arteries are going kind of squeezing down. Now, why is that important? It's because our previous theories, and again the same principles apply in geopolitics, which is why the Democrats failed, because they looked at the drivers of what makes a population happy and wanting to vote for you, and they missed the boat. Trump didn't. Well, I don't miss the boat. And I keep on reevaluating what I even think I know, and I realized that the KARDIOVASC formula addresses issues that your regular cardiologist almost never deals with. For example, almost all the people that have coronary vascular spasm have elevated cortisol levels, elevated stress hormones, and dysautonomia, which means they get big surges of adrenaline and noradrenaline that occurs, which is, by the way, dumped from above your kidneys, and they have high levels of cortisol, which means their stress hormone levels are very high. Now, if you get a big dump of noradrenaline and we call vasoactive peptides, you're going to have coronary vascular spasm. If that spasm is long enough, you're going to have a heart attack or a stroke, even if your arteries are clean as a whistle. So the problem I see is we don't look at the total set of data to reevaluate our theory to see if the theory is totally correct or there may be more than one pathway to develop a heart attack or a stroke. So let's go through the formula, and I'll explain how the autonomic issues and these other issues kind of play in it. So the first one, of course, is the vitexin from the leaf and flower of the plant. So let's go through that one, and we'll go through each one, and I'm going to explain how the autonomic issue is a very important issue, and besides things like nitric oxide metabolism and free radical in the artery wall with superoxide dismutase 1 and 2, and gamma, nitroproxy and hydroproxy radical, which is why we have gamma E plus and so on. Those are all important, but if you don't deal with the autonomic nervous system, you're going to miss the boat. I mean, you have multiple things we're having to deal with here. That's what's so clever about KARDIOVASC. It deals with each of these issues, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go start off the top. Okay, vitexin.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the vitexin, that's a component of hawthorn. And we use the hawthorn plant from Europe, which is the only proper plant that actually has the studies behind it that show it's beneficial for heart and circulation.
Right.
And not to be confused with the hawthorn that's grown in China, which is actually a slightly different plant.
Right.
So now, ours is from Europe.
Right. Now, the comparison is there are other companies making knockoffs. Extendivite, Heart and Body, Strauss Heart Drops, and they're using inferior parts of plants from the wrong continent. They're maybe getting their hawthorn from China, and they're not using the right part of the plant, so it's not going to have the same effect. Now, hawthorn has three major effects. It's cardiotonic, which means it affects your mitochondria to make your heart mitochondria and your blood vessel mitochondria work better. It also has an effect on the autonomic control, because remember, think of how a blood vessel works. The inside of the vessel is the endothelium. It generates nitric oxide, so the nitric oxide helps the blood make the blood vessel dilate. Then there's the media layer, which is a muscular layer. It has to contract in response to that initial pressure wave or shearing force. And then there's the vasa nervorum, which is basically on the outside of the wall of the artery. There's actually a blood supply to the nerve supply, and the nerves actually regulate the internal functioning of the blood vessel. Most people don't realize this. Each vessel, even tiny ones, are actually pretty complex devices. And if your autonomic nervous system is thrown out of balance, your blood vessels are not going to respond to the shearing force with a contractile wave. And you also have to generate nitric oxide, and you also have to make sure you're not getting thickening of the muscular layer because you've got tonic spasm of the blood vessel wall or calcification. So eventually if you get atherogenic calcification, the blood vessel is not going to have a contractile wave because it's stiff like an old garden hose left out in the sun. So there's a lot of forces involved in maintaining a good circulation, and if 70% of your circulation is your blood vessels, shearing force response with a peristaltic wave to the shearing force of your heart hitting that vessel wall, and the nervous system isn't tied to it. If your autonomic nervous system is queued up to be, we call sympathetic overdrive, you get tonic spasm of the vessel, you're not going to get a peristaltic wave, and you're going to get resistance to the heart, so your systolic and diastolic pressures are going to be high. So when you're looking at pressure, it's not a direct indication of perfusion, or even if the blood vessels are working well, which is why we have a new test now called a BioCuff blood pressure device you can buy through me if you want. You can also go to a cardiologist and get an endopad or endothelix test to look at perfusion and reperfusion after you take off the pressure off the artery after 5 minutes of having it on your arm. So the problem is that the models that the cardiologists have been using for the last 100 years are wrong-headed. And their treatments are wrong-headed, which is why they miss the boat, and they chase your condition like reducing preload by giving you mass amounts of diuretics, or central-acting beta or alpha blockers like clonidine for alpha blockers, or beta blockers like clonidine and propranolol and atenolol. And they actually don't fix the problem. They don't fix the autonomic nervous system screwed up. They don't fix the muscular layer problem of the energy metabolism. And they don't fix the nitric oxide metabolism, and they don't stop the inflammation sufficient or increase levels of HDL cholesterol and get rid of small particle HDL, which is really, really bad. I mean, the small particle HDL is the one that'll kill you. So it's the worst of all of them, worse than VLDL3. So when I talk to doctors, including cardiologists, they realize, like, this is a bad thing to talk to you, Diego. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing because what you're doing is you're killing your patients. Mm-hmm. So let's go to the next component.
So then we have the aged garlic extract.
Now, aged garlic has several main effects. We have allicin med. And allicin med is straight allicin, but this is not only allicin, but a number of other biological molecules in there that have an effect on stopping what's called angiotensin-converting enzyme. Now, when your body perceives that perfusion is poor in your kidneys, it sends out angiotensin. And the angiotensin basically makes your blood vessels start to go into tonic spasm. Not a good thing. Which is why we use things like lumen photon over the kidneys, and it'll actually reduce your angiotensin converting enzyme. It also reduces C-reactive protein because your body starts producing inflammatory molecules in response to perceived perfusion decreases, and those increased inflammatory molecules can shove you over and make you diabetic, like leukotriene B4 we know turns you into diabetic. And C-reactive protein, or another marker that's called PI1, or plasminogen activator inhibitor 1. If you actually ask your doctor or cardiologist if they're aware of PI1, you'll find that most of them will give you blank stares and look at you like they're the deer in the headlights. They don't know because they haven't read it. They don't read the journals. The fact is, they're knuckleheads. Now, you might say that's insulting, doctor. You're insulting my doctor. Your doctor needs to get with the program and read their own journals, because most of these are published in their cardiology and medical journals, but they're not scientists, most of the doctors. They're technicians, and they're robots. And a robot and technician isn't going to read advanced scientific journals that basically counter their current theories of how they practice, because they want to keep the same bevy of drugs or surgical procedures. And if patients go south, it's the patient's fault. It's not theirs. That's disturbing, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. In other words, it's your damn fault because you're a bad patient. It's not my theory is wrong, and my theory about what the disease process you have doesn't include dysautonomia, doesn't include vasospasm, doesn't include nitric oxide, doesn't include the peristaltic wave of the vessels that actually respond to the heart, doesn't include all these other factors that completely ignore. Again, you don't ignore them when you're taking KARDIOVASC. So let's look at the next component.
So then we have the Cayenne.
Cayenne, of course, is a vasodilator, and that's important. It helps with release nitric oxide. Next one.
The bilberry.
Bilberry is the most dialyzable antioxidant. If you're looking at the most dialyzable of all is hydrogen, but bilberry is very dialyzable, which means it goes through the vessel walls and solid organs. And if you stop free radicals with singlet oxygen, nitrohydroperoxy radical, now, of course, the best ones for those particular are gamma E plus and tocotrienols, tocopherols. But you got to stop the free radicals. And next one.
So then we've got the milk thistle.
Milk thistle is a universal stimulant to the liver to detox. There's a lot of the chemicals that cause vasospasm and cause toxic damage to the endothelial wall are chemicals that if your body detoxes, they're not going to cause a problem. A great deal of our heart disease nowadays is because of toxic chemicals in our food and water, and toxic halides, for example, chloride, fluoride, and bromide. And these bromamines, chloramines, etc., are toxic to vessel walls, and they also interfere with mitochondria, because basically heart disease, from Brodebards and other researchers, is directly tied to functional hypothyroidism. Everybody who develops a heart disease is functionally hypothyroid. They either have type 1 thyroid, which means antithyroid antibodies, antimicrosomal antithyroid globulin, or type 2, which is more common, 30 to 50 times more common, which is a diabetic or insulin-resistant type. And those people all have, their cells are poisoned with sodium. Sodium potassium ATPase isn't working properly. They all have elevated blood insulin levels and cortisol stress hormones. They have elevated norepinephrine and dopamine levels. And they have elevated levels of reverse thyroid hormone because their body's converting to the hormone blocking form of thyroid, which is the 5-deiodinase instead of the 5'. And as a result, they're basically all hypometabolic, under oxidative stress, and under sympathetic overdrive with elevated cortisol. So everybody that develops hypertension and heart disease has type 2 hypothyroidism. Everyone, without any exception. And if you ask the average doctor or cardiologist, do they monitor the patient's reverse thyroid hormone or the basal body temperature? No, I didn't do that. None of these knuckleheads measure to see that their patients are still hypothyroid. Even if they say they have a normal T4 and T3, they say they're fine. That's not true if their reverse thyroid hormone levels are up. Because you can give RT3, and if you're traveling to Mars and it takes you, say, 2 months to get there, you can put someone to suspended animation with RT3. I've talked to the people at NASA about this, and they say, oh, yeah, that'd be cool, wouldn't it, Deagle? I said, you know what? People are walking around all day long developing diabetes, and they're all elevated reverse thyroid hormone because their metabolism shuts off, which is why they get fat really easy, because they're blocked in metabolism. So anybody that's overweight, they have elevated reverse thyroid hormone. Okay? They're all hypothyroid. Interesting, eh? Next supplement is the valerian, right?
Yep.
Now, valerian is important because it rebalances your autonomic nervous system. if you're in overdrive, and we have several good ones that also help. Calm Mind and Brain Mag are some of my favorites. I'm working on some new ones that I may be adding to our armamentarium of nutraceuticals. But right now, the best thing is several times a day, if you have hypertension or congestive heart failure, is to tamp down that overactive autonomic nervous system and elevated cortisol. Because if you measure fasting cortisol or salivary cortisol timescale through the day with saliva, so you get multiple data points, you'll find that everybody that's got hypertension and heart failure have elevated cortisol levels, 100%. Isn't that interesting? So you're not just looking at, oh, your blood pressure's good today or not today. You got to look at all the range of other hormones that are all screwed up and thrown out of balance. And if you don't address those issues, like valerian does, you're not going to fix that person's hypertension or their perfusion problem, because they're not perfusing because they've got elevated levels of stress hormones causing their arteries to go into spasm. Interesting, eh? So,
Dr. Bill, did you mention I can't remember, did you mention the ginkgo also?
Ginkgo biloba is going to reduce blood viscosity and improve microcirculation. It's really important. You need to stop it 4 days before major surgery. It's in our U.S. version called the KARDIOVASC. It's not in the Canadian. The Canadian regulatory authorities took it out, I think, a year or two ago. So the Canadian version, which is the old KARDIOVASC formula, but ours has it in America. And I really think it's important because if you actually measure, I tell people the gold standard for looking at heart disease is to get a lipid electrophoresis, including small particle HDL. Number 2, high-speed CT scan of your arteries to look for calcified score. Number 3, a rheologic blood viscosity test. Now, if you think these 3 tests are ordered by your average cardiologist, you'd lose the bet, because they're not. The cardiologists are knuckleheads, they're ignorant, and they continue to press because MD also stands for magnificent deity. Now, as a doctor, I can tell you, that if you get me in court, you can imagine you do not want to be on the other side, because I'm not Mr. Pleasant, okay? So, if people say, you're just an arrogant SOB, Deagle. Maybe so, but you know what? I know what I'm doing, which means I'm not really arrogant, I'm just competent. And the problem is I didn't go into medicine to play or to get really wealthy. I went into medicine to find the cause of disease. So this year, in the next year from now to next year and by next summer, I'm publishing a lot of articles, putting a lot of videos up, and a lot of theories that I've developed over decades of many things, including my theory of pain, aging and disease, which I'm now producing a new video version for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. We're going to put it up on their website. People need to understand I made a number of great breakthroughs, and every single one, including adding magnesium to the ACLS protocol in the late 70s, I received with great persecution. My medical colleagues do not like me running ahead of them. I don't give a damn. I don't give a rat's behind what they think. All I want them to do is evaluate whether what I'm saying is true, use scientific, deductive, and inductive logic, and set up discovery models to prove what I'm saying is true. And if it is true, whether it's cancer, which again is an anaerobic condition, or autoimmune disease, which is an anaerobic condition with changes in cell proteins, my theories of disease and aging will radicalize and change the face of medicine in almost every sphere. And the problem is people say, well, that can't be true. I said, well, there are people like me that do come along every century or so, and we rattle and shake all the cages of all the so-called health providers. Right now, I would say the health providers are like in a stage of several centuries ago pushing buckets of leeches. Our current buckets of leeches are indiscriminate use of pharmacological agents with inaccurate models that are out of date in terms of what disease is. When we have failures of seeding that, when I point out something as simple as half of the cardiology patients that die of acute cardiac arrest don't have a plaque or a blocked artery, that's pretty disturbing, isn't it?
Yep.
Right. And when we look at the reasons why people develop cancer, they don't explain it either. The same thing goes, what is vascular disease? And what I like to do is I like to ask people simple questions like, what's a cell? Especially when I get somebody who's a real subspecialist in something. What is an endothelial cell? What makes it different? I call it kindergarten logic, right? And, as I gradually open it up, it's like I'm the spider and you're crawled into my little web cage, and now I'm going to slam the door. And I slam it intellectually. And then I do what I would call a spider vivisection on you. Pull off this little limb, that limb, pull off the skin, get down to the bone. And the reason is I think that we're never really going to solve problems unless we deal with reality. Most people have an aversion to what I call vicious intellectual analysis that will take away and strip away even your previous a priori assumptions about what the disease is. So if you talk to the average doctor, what's hypertension, they'll give you some stupid, lame excuse as to what hypertension is or what's vascular disease. Well, when you point out that Dr. Deagle says half of the people have a heart attack on an autopsy don't have blocked arteries, that's a big problem, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know who pointed that out to me again the other day when I was talking to him on the phone was Ron Klatz. I said, look, Ron, I said, 18 peoples on Earth that live 100 years or more, up to 100 times more centenarians, all have glacial milk in their diet or they're Okinawa Japanese with increased minerals, which is why my theory about aging is a crosstalk between the telomeres and the cell membrane. And a great deal of the reason why we're having heart disease and cancer rates through the ceiling is we lack the minerals to prevent or to induce the right enzymes and proteins. We lack the antioxidants in our diet, and we have a lot of heavy metals and toxins, including endocrine disruptors and chemicals in our environment like plasticizing agents that damage our artery walls. And we wonder why we get heart disease. It's like, you got to be kidding. It's like walking into a factory. There's all kinds of high explosives and chemicals all over the place ready to blow up, and vapor clouds over top of open containers, and you wonder why the place doesn't explode. I'm thinking, I got to get out of here quick before it explodes while I'm inside the factory. People say, no, Dr. Deagle, you're just exaggerating. I said, no, I'm not, unfortunately. So, well, that's interesting. I guess the computer froze up when we were going to the bottom of the hour. That's interesting. I hope that we get everything recorded, though. Yeah, it's all recorded, so that's good. I just got my message from my board op. So
okay, are we still on? Are we on the air, Dr. Bill?
Oh yeah, we're on the air. Everything's recorded. So anyway, okay. In other words, I tell people, first off, number one, take KARDIOVASC, and that means any adult over 30. Any child, for example, my daughter with Down syndrome, she gets KARDIOVASC in her drink or syrup. They give her every day. Number two, get a test done to see if your perfusion's okay. Perfusion is king. Get a rheologic test done for blood viscosity. Get the endopattern endothelix to look at your perfusion. If you're male or female over age 40, female over 50, male over 40, get a high-speed CT scan to look at your calcium score. Get a blood electrophoresis done, not just an NMR spectroscopy. Look at your lipid fractions, and then fix it with our supplements. And if you don't, you're going to be a victim of your MD, your magnificent deity, and they're going to kill you.
You are tuned in.
This half hour we had, of course, guests sometimes aren't able to show or can't miss meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So, a couple things. The big sale's coming up on over the Thanksgiving week, and that's going to start on the 25th. So, we'll be making some major announcements on that. Just want to touch on some of the issues that are coming up. Firstly, I'm doing some training on our new live stream studio, so we're going to be out doing much more advanced videos that will be available besides our current video types, which we do usually 1 or 2 videos a day for either news items, wellness products, or nutraceuticals or protocols, etc. I'm developing videos that are going to be for professional level as well. Those will be available on video on demand over in Vimeo, including the wellness protocols. Those will be a small fee to. So if you go over to Vimeo, you'll see the video on demand section where we have those. The live stream is pretty exciting because it means I'll have full broadcast capacity to do multi-site conferences where you have people at different sites and can bring them on and actually do the conferences. So probably in the next week or so, I'll be announcing that we'll be having them probably, I'm going to guess in the latter part of November or early December, we're going to start doing some live stream conferences, and we'll keep those on demand as well. Those will be available over probably on video on demand as well over on our Vimeo channel. The nice thing about it is we're able to actually bring on the speaker, have them put their PowerPoint, and have multiple people at the same time. So that's going to be really exciting, and it'll be just like watching Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, whatever. We'll be able to bring on people all around the world simultaneously and live, which is pretty cool. So we can discuss spiritual issues, geopolitical, health issues, and those conferences we'll announce on our live stream channel. So if you haven't signed up for live stream, do so, because that's where the main portal will be to get access to the live stream video material. And, of course, do visit our YouTube and our Vimeo channels because you're getting a lot of exposure to a lot of things that you otherwise wouldn't see and hear. Now we have specials. Our NutriSilver is flying off the shelves. We're creating more batches now because it's going so quickly. We have our Alcimed on special, Brain Power on special, NutriDefense on special. We have people requesting information about getting the QRMA device and on time payments. We also have the Metapathia on time payments. If you do it for your family, the QRMA analysis is free. Okay. Now, if you do a consultation, which means medical documents and so on, that's a separate thing. But the analysis of the QRMA and recommendation for supplement protocols is free if you purchase it through me, and over time you get your machine. Now, if you're doing it for someone else, if you can do this as a business, anybody who has a QRMA machine can do this. You just charge for acquisition of the data. Your responsibility is to make sure you get their payment costs, you get their 11-page history form, complete it and send to me as well. And they need to purchase 2 time units for QRMA and 4 time units for a Metapathia Hunter analysis, which I need to see you need to actually either record the video of the Metapathia Hunter, would be the ideal. So you need a video capture card on your computer, like the Black Magic capture card is probably one of the best, or Elgato. I like the Black Magic because it's good for video recording. So if you need specs on that, the QRMA is real simple. You can actually have it in a small case and have it in your car, and you can bring it anywhere. So it's portable. Metapathia Hunter is also small, and you can put it in a car or van. You don't have to have a big truck or anything else like that. So it's very portable. I will need the history form, and if you're going to do a full consultation, so for additional units, I'll need a couple of additional units of time if we're going to be sending lots of medical records too, including MRIs, CT scans, surgical reports, evaluations, other consults, etc. So it's a true medical, subspecialty consultation. It's not just a little minor thing. And the same way with the QRMA, I include a consultation with that, so they don't just get a QRMA test alone. We have specials on the Green Tea Supreme and also on KARDIOVASC all the time. Now, we're working also at launching the Nutrimedical Forum, which Michelle is handling over on our Deagle Network. Just to run down through some of the other affiliates, if you want to get a quick and dirty and free consultation, I just had a gentleman this morning who had stents up in Quebec, Canada, who contacted us. He's just sent his email. He wants to get some answers on what to start with. The quick recommendations and even follow-up is free. That's part of our ministry. But if you start to send me all kinds of medical records and have complex medical questions, I'm going to request that you fill in the 11-page consultation form and purchase, to start with, 2 units of time in order to actually get the process going. And I will recommend medical care, specific testing, specific types of specialists you may need to see, specific types of advanced cardiological testing, which your doctor probably is not aware of and should be aware of. But I'll make those recommendations, and they are things that can be covered by your insurance. We, of course, have our Carrot Bars link and our Join Carrot Bars, which I think is extremely important to be a financial prepper. We have our NutriMeds for 10% savings with the code NutriMed on our Pure Water systems. We have the link directly to Clay and Iron, which is our website that includes above government technology, the spiritual issues, and all other news other than the nutraceutical news is over at clayandiron.com. We have Jurisdictionary, How to Win in Court, and this is an online course I've taken and repeatedly taken over time. They send you out regularly emails that give you lots of instruction and new information. It's a fantastic course. I think every American should take it. It should be part of our curriculum so that before people finish grade 8 or grade 9, before they go off to technical school or high school, they should have taken this course. So I think all American citizens should take the Jurisdictionary, How to Win in Court course. We have Summit to See, mild hyperbaric oxygen, and we have these new chambers development. They are the best in the world in terms of mild hyperbarics. We have PPRDI, the Peak Performance Research Institute in New York City, and Jim Garcia is handling that. He has the Metapathia, a bioplasma, and the QRMA, so we can portably come and do the testing for you. You remember, you have to fill out a consult, purchase 2 consult units for QRMA, 4 for Metapathia Hunter to start with. And if there's complex medical records or other issues, I need additional time units because it's a very advanced thing and it's very time consuming to look at the QRMA and the Metapathia Hunter, and then amalgamated all into a comprehensive program. We have the vibrational exercise equipment with Vibra Slim, which is the best machine available to compare it to the Power Plate. It's about a third of the price. Free shipping, 3-year warranty. It's all modular. It's fantastic. It's what I recommend strongly, and I do the exercise every day. Less EMFs. This is our protection from electrosmog, ultraviolet radiation. And we now have a new system, by the way, can take our MP3s from our harmonic resonant MP3s for stimulating the ion channels to open up your remineralization of tissues. Those MP3s are available now. We're going to expand that number. We now have a device set up where you can, under $200, you can get a radiator to actually have an antenna literally amplify and irradiate with those harmonic resonant frequencies. So it's a very, very simple device that our guys over at SEMF and Emil de Toffel put together for us. We have my son's website, Matthew Deagle, Symbology of Psychological Analysis, and he does personal, corporate, and global issues, so very, very good services. He's on every Friday. MG12, this is our Dead Sea mineralization, 14 minerals in the Dead Sea not present in the normal oceans or in your food that are essential for life. These are fantastic cosmetic and other products. I use them every day. Dave and Jean Mitchell. Now, if you're trying to develop a community or want to purchase land or a home, not only in Southern California because he's a broker, Dave's a genius at this, and his wife Jean is extremely helpful. What they'll do is they can develop a program for you, whether you're building your resort, if you want to call it, in America or overseas. They can help you with their broker experience in terms of how to set up a prepper organization. I particularly like California because there's lots of remote areas here, although it's a huge state, and there's lots of places where you can get good water supplies too from wells, etc. So even though it doesn't rain much here, there's lots of areas where there's good gravity type wells, etc. Prepare-wise foods. These are the best Mylar low oxygen concentration foods with the longest shelf life, 25 plus years. We get a lot of people extremely pleased with these because you open them up and you don't have to have a whole number 10 can. We also have the Lumen Photon far in near infrared spectra. I'm working with the engineers to develop a technology to, in the on phase of the lights, put our harmonic resonant frequencies plugged in. We have the micro pulse healing Earth's resonance frequency, and now the same company with Dr. Bob Dennis has brought out the matrix pulse for turning off pain. The micro pulse is good for pain reduction, and especially for stem cell and tissue regeneration. The research came out of NASA with Dr. Bob Dennis. The matrix pulse was developed by Dr. Dennis and Dr. Roth for turning off pain. You also save with the code Dr. Deagle, you're going to save an additional $30 if you purchase this through our link. We have the link up for 23andMe, and I recommend a Prometheus. I'm one of the few doctors that can actually do a genetic analysis and give you your Prometheus supplement recommendations, whether you have genetic disorder or an underlying metabolic pathway problem that you weren't aware of. I can give you a customized nutraceutical protocol based on your 23andMe and Prometheus analysis. And the Prometheus only costs you $5. They'll generate it for you on your computer, and you can send me your Prometheus, and I'll do a consultation based on that. Ann Morrison Science blog link is there. Then we, of course, have the link for Joel Skousen's World Affairs Brief. Joel's on usually at least once a month or so, sometimes more or less, sometimes twice a month, sometimes it goes longer. He hasn't been on for a while, so I'm going to get him back on soon. Turtle Top Shelters. These are the best resilient survival shelters in the world. They're better than an RV or a tent or a building. And they can be set up. You're going to save an additional 5% with the code 3215. We have the Ready Store. These are some of the best food supply and emergency equipment and medical supply in the world. And also they have training videos and other material. So excellent. Then we have a direct link to Jonathan Gray's ancient archaeology books and his videos, etc. So that gives you an idea of some of the services we try to provide. We're going to be expanding these dramatically in terms of what's going on in Nutrimedical. Remember, the other link is to clayandiron.com. I want to touch on some of the issues in the news lately. China fires a warning shot. Of course, basically it's a dialogue I'm sure is going to go on between Jinping and Donald Trump. And I'm sure they'll work out something that's eventually a win-win situation. So we talked about that in the first hour with Jim Fetzer. I think that now that we have some rationality in the government and the Rust Belt states have spoken, the wisdom of the American public is, I'm very proud of Americans for standing up for truth and wanting to correct the foolishness of the very aggressive and very elitist progressive Democrats over the last number of years. They've blown their base. They no longer have their base, so they need to reevaluate what their future is in America. And I honestly think the Democrats can reinvent themselves to be another party for the working man and woman, and also for America first, rather than foolish ideas about global warming and billions of dollars spent on foolishness and open borders and globalism, etc. These are not good for America, and they're not good for the world. Let's talk about some of the consultations I've done recently. And what I often find is these are a very good way of actually highlighting some of the recent consults. In fact, I'll tell you what, before I even go there, I'm going to actually go into some of the draft ones that are currently being requested. Now, someone was asking about Uri International, and this is an old food company. Don't even think about it, okay? We have Far Superior with our drinks, glycemics for weight loss, life support for detoxification, ageless, they literally make you age less, and NutriComplete, the both reds and greens drink. So don't even think about alternative drinks from other companies. They're a waste of your time. Let's see. Okay. Good, okay. Someone's asking about their Listen Live line. First off, the issue when you're trying to contact the show, you have to go to Nutrimedical.com. We don't have any links other than the link directly at our Republic Broadcasting to listen to the show on the Showcast line. If you want to listen to the show, you have to go to Nutrimedical.com. All the Listen Live links, including the 708 number to listen to the show rebroadcast 8 times a day, the link directly to go on your computer and listen to the program that way. All the links to our Deagle Network, YouTube, Vimeo, video channels, everything is on Nutrimedical.com. It's also replicated over on clayandiron.com. So you're not going to find it at Republic Broadcasting except for Showcast. So when, it's not the same as when we were over at Genesis where they controlled everything. We control everything at Nutrimedical. Someone came up and they mentioned also they had another product for collagen. This is a Alex Jones inferior product again. I'm not going to mention even the name, but don't second guess Dr. Deagle, okay? It's a waste of your time. When you hear inferior products from other people that are flogging them, they're just trying to see if they can capture some of the people that are uninformed to think that their product is anywhere near as good. It's not, and don't waste your time. And they don't have ways of providing functional medicine support. They don't know what they're talking about. Let's see. I get contacts from all over the world, and this gentleman ended up with stents in his heart and a pacemaker and is on dialysis. And he's from Quebec, Canada. And what I'm going to be doing is giving him a very basic starter protocol. I'm going to recommend, because his complex condition, he's on dialysis, which means he's in renal failure, is we're going to have to resurrect his kidney function. We'll be using things like ultrathymine B1 and Vein-Away to resurrect his loop of Henle and his kidney function. We're going to be using things to improve perfusion of his heart. We're going to also give him things to prevent and reverse any calcification of his arteries, so he needs a high-speed CT scan, a lipid electrophoresis, and a blood viscosity test. Those tests I'm going to recommend he have done, and then to purchase a full consultation. As I say, these tests are done at advanced federally certified laboratories. They're really essential for me to be able to tell you how to reverse your cardiological disease, because if they're not done, your regular doctor and your cardiologist don't know what they're doing, and unfortunately that's the reality. So if they're not reversing, say, small particle HDL, if they're not reversing blood viscosity issues, and we're not talking about just things like Coumadin or Eliquis and Xarelto, you're not going to get it corrected. And if you don't regenerate the kidneys, we can use peptides for the kidneys, or even a stem cell transplant. I have access to the best clinics for that too. So let's see. Someone was asking if they want to know what we're doing with, they're looking for an old product, Extreme Testosterone. We are launching in the next week a transdermal testosterone. What I tell people for male menopause, firstly, start off with 4 Men's Max in the morning, 2 Hormone Synergy in the morning, 2 pumps of DHEA of the old pump. The new one now, it's basically you're going to be using. There's somebody trying to call me in there. There we go. And so, anyway, what happens is you start off with the DHEA and pregnenolone, and then the testosterone. You want to make sure you take the hormone synergy to prevent conversion from male hormone into female. It's very important to make sure that happens, so you end up with increased estradiol or estriol, which can cause female hormone changes like breast bud formation. So we don't use the pregnenolone tablets because it goes through the liver. We use the transdermal progesterone as well, by the way. So that's much superior. Give us suggestions of what you want in terms of what kinds of things in the newsletter. Right now we put announcements at the top. We are also putting a list of the latest show for the last few weeks and a lot of the news items as well. If you want different items in the newsletter, just give us some feedback on that, and I'll prepare that for you. We'll be back in just a moment with the last few minutes of this hour, and coming up in hour number 3, we'll be joined by Ryan, and we'll talk about Nutrimeds and our latest protocols. Welcome back. I get all kinds of interesting things when I get a consultation. A lot of time I get, like a raw for Trump coming in, then I have usually some spiritual issue questions, and then sometimes I'll get photos of people's rashes, and it's actually at times kind of interesting and challenging. Sometimes people will provide inadequate information for me to make a decision on what their pathway should be. You have to consider that if I have a proper consultation performed, or at least to start, I can tell you where we need to go next, whether you need to fill in the history form, whether you need to attach any documents like, let's say, treadmill stress tests, blood work, immunology tests, whatever, consultations. That requires a consult, and a consult requires time units. Usually recommend to start out with 2 time units if you're going to request a full consult, fill in the 11-page history form. I will provide you a very good consultation. I'll tell you exactly what we need to do next, which may need certain types of doctors, testing, certain types of alternative health providers, what clinics and so on around the world, because I'm connected to clinics all over the world through our academies of anti-aging, environmental advancement, and medicine. And as I say, what I don't know, I'll find out because I know how to research, and I have a talent at finding people that can fit the bill, whether you need a stem cell transplant or you need to get peptides from Europe or you need other types of alternative care. Let's see. Sometimes we get people that have all kinds of really serious eye conditions, and I'm looking at one here by a gentleman by the name of John. What he's told me basically is he's got a specific eye disorder that's caused by swelling of the optic nerve head. He's probably going to get patchy dysmyelination and neuro-ophthalmological evaluation. They only put him on prednisone. We talked about this a little bit on Friday. Prednisone only works in certain pathways and cytokines in the body. You have to stop the free radicals, which is nitroproxy and hydroproxy radical. You have to remyelinate the nerve fiber tracts by providing the nutrients and bionutrients for the body to remyelinate. You have to reduce the edema of the particular areas, and prednisone alone isn't going to fit the bill. The problem is, you see, when doctors just use prednisone only, it's not going to stop all the other factors causing inflammation or damage or provide the nutrients to rebuild it. You also may need things like this person should be probably put in a hyperbaric chamber, either a 3 atmosphere if that's available at the hospital, or a mild hyperbaric chamber to restore the oxygen to the nerve head and reduce inflammation. That's really essential that happen immediately. They may need things such as lumen photon and specific settings to stimulate healing and regeneration and reoxygenation of the nerve head. So, as I say, a combination of technology and nutraceuticals and specific peptides and maybe even right up to stem cell therapy may be helpful at reversing neuro-ophthalmological problems like this. And you have to be creative because you're not just going to try one modality like, the neuro-ophthalmologist just giving steroids. You have to do a lot more than that. It's just not enough. Sometimes people will ask for how long, many months it will take to reverse a specific condition. We have to actually see how a person is responding to the treatment in a month. We go month by month. We can't tell you it's going to take 6 months or 12 months. that question is one that we have to fractionally respond. How does the patient respond to the current protocol? Do we need to expand the protocol or add technology? And when we do so, then we can give you a prediction of whether or not we're moving at a pace in the right direction to heal. Back in a moment with Ryan.